Good evening. I'm Renee Powell with Oklahoma Family Network, and welcome to Toolbox Tuesday. Tonight, we are very fortunate to have Ellie Pryor, a parent, an educator, and an advocate, as well as Oklahoma's Community Alliance Chair for the National CMV Foundation. Um, there is still time to register for the Strides for CMV 5K. They will actually have 5Ks in Woodward, Tulsa, and Sulphur. It's Saturday, June the 27th at 8 a.m. And we'll talk about that a little more. Um, so, Ellie Pryor is an educator, parent advocate, and congenital cytomegalovirus, or CMV, awareness champion from Woodward, Oklahoma. Following her family's experience with congenital CMV, Ellie has become a dedicated voice for increasing public awareness, early detection, and family support related to this often overlooked condition. As a mother and advocate, Ellie shares her family's journey to help other parents recognize the importance of newborn screening, hearing monitoring, and early intervention services. She works to educate families, healthcare providers, educators, and community members about CMV, which is the leading cause of birth defects and a leading non-genetic cause of childhood hearing loss. She serves as the Oklahoma Community Alliance Chair for the National CMV Foundation, helping to connect families, promote prevention, education, and advocate for improved awareness across the state. She has also partnered with organizations like Oklahoma Family Network to provide education and support to families affected by CMV. Professionally, Ellie is an educator with Woodward Public Schools, where she is recognized for her commitment to literacy, student engagement, and educational excellence. In 2026, she was named one of the Oklahoma State Teacher of the Year finalists. Through her advocacy and professional work, Ellie continues to empower families, raise awareness about congenital CMV, and ensure that more children receive timely supports that they need to thrive. And thank you so much for being here. And I am going to hand it over to Ellie.
Thank you. What a nice introduction. So I'm just gonna kind of go over CMV pretty broadly. I'm thankful to have Holly here too to chime in if I don't know something or clarify. But I'm just gonna kind of jump in and go over a few things, and then we'll kind of go from there. If anyone has questions, and talk about some stories. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so CMV is simply a virus that is super common. And in adults or anyone that's not pregnant, it is simply a common cold. Sometimes it can affect those who have immune suppressed conditions in a different way, but typically it's a common cold type of virus, and until you get it when you're pregnant. And when you get it when you're pregnant, unfortunately, and passes to your baby can be born with a range of complications. And so CMV, again, is mostly harmless to most people. And oftentimes, in a lot of ways, is missed. And it's so important that we work in Oklahoma to get each baby screened, and especially we're kind of working right now and starting with at least screening those babies that show some symptoms. And I'll kind of go into a little more details on why so many will continue to be missed with that type of screening, but at least we're able to target some. And so looking at CMV, some things that a lot of the times you'll see is hearing loss in one or both ears. And it's critical that you follow that because unfortunately with CMV, the hearing loss can be progressive. And that's again why I think one thing that I was listening to and following is about 10% of babies are symptomatic, and oftentimes those are simply not diagnosed at birth, even though they have symptoms. But then the other 10% of those babies are unfortunately missed due to no symptoms, but developing symptoms later, including um, multiple things. So 1 in 200 babies is born with CMV. And so I'll show you a chart that really shows how sad that is when we screen for a lot of things that are combined that are much less prevalent than CMV. And one thing, Holly, I asked her to look up just the other day was how long does Oklahoma keep the blood card? And I think, what did you say, 42?
42 days. Yeah.
Days. And so it's so crucial that the baby is tested within the first 21 days of their life because CMV is so common that there's a very good chance that that baby could have been exposed otherwise. So in Oklahoma, if you're probably out of luck. Like 42 days is very short. If you didn't get tested within 21 days, you don't have that, oh, I can go check the blood bank. Like some states, no, like you just won't know. And information is very powerful for providing as we move. I'll show antivirals on another slide and an intervention that's crucial. So, how is CMV transmitted? CMV is transmitted simply through bodily fluids, as you see here. And so I like to compare to my non-knowledgeable at all virus to COVID and the fact that we worked really hard to prevent COVID and it was airborne. This is not. This is definitely transmitted through bodily fluids, and it's something that I don't believe is fully preventable, but it is absolutely reducible by doing some simple hygiene. Good hygiene can definitely reduce our risk. Do you have anything to add, Holly? Good.
No, you're doing great. Yeah.
And so here's some quick little examples of things that we can do to reduce your risk. And so again, very simple things. I look back and we do all these things for our baby. We want the best for our baby, including not eating, you know, salami or whatever it is. We know about litter boxes. We know about these things that we were very happy to do. However, all of those things are very less likely than this virus that I wish I had known, that I could not share this bite from my 1-year-old, almost 2-year-old daughter. And so very simple things that no, I would not say that it completely reduces my or prevents it completely. Absolutely not. That's not life. But reducing my risk and knowing that was something that I could have done is kind of hard. And I wish, the knowledge would have been very, very helpful versus maybe the salami. And, all of those things are helpful again. But okay, so moving on from that. Vaccines, there is some development of that, obviously, in the current climate of that. It's kind of halted. So I don't know much more about that. I love following the Washington CMV project. They just have really good things. And again, this is where oftentimes babies are born even with symptoms that are missed, but often the same amount of babies that are caught with symptoms are missed. So that's really, really hard. Anderson, for example, my son could have easily gone with, he was not born. And I can kind of go into some more of that, his story, but he was not born knowing that he had congenital CMV. He looked like a perfectly healthy baby. You cannot see hearing loss. Obviously, you can do screenings for that. You also cannot see brain damage. And so there's a lot that can't be seen. And unfortunately, those babies are often missed. And another component of why screening for CMV is so important for outcomes for these babies. Some things that are something that I think would be important for parents to know and advocate for is if they do notice that their baby has a small head or is small in general. That's something that I would kind of be concerned about, especially the microcephaly, low birth weight. These are little things that can be very normal, but could also be a sign of CMV. And so you can kind of read some of those there. Let's see, I'm going to skip through some of this. One other thing, as we go through here is knowing and having the information gives you options. And so gives you options to to treat your child and give them intervention. And so an antiviral that my son started at 4 days old, I feel very, very strongly supported his little body that was fighting this virus. It was able to stop the virus from continuing to replicate, and he was able to grow and heal. And so having that information of a diagnosis is the only way they're going to be able to be treated with this antiviral. And so my background is early childhood education. And I'm very, when I hear people say the wait and see thing, I had something that happened just the other day, and my husband looked at me, and I was really kind of mild. But the wait and see thing, as you can see with the brain, and I was trying to find the actual brain MRI. It's incredible how much the brain grows from 0 to 1, and intervention is so, so important. And so getting these babies the diagnosis to give them the very best outcome is what we should do and what we need to do for every family in Oklahoma and across the United States, but focusing on our state for now. Here is the chart that really kind of hones in on how common CMV is compared to Down syndrome, spina bifida. I mean, you can look at the list and then the awareness. And so actually this is just the awareness on the very top. And I don't think I pulled the really kind of touching, but here on the CMV Washington project, that shows you kind of the orange bar would show you how many babies would have been from 2019 marked as congenital CMV versus all of these other disorders that were screened for and combined, of course, do not add up to the same number that CMV would have been tested for. So anyway, enough rambling. I think we can kind of stop there. If anyone has questions or Renee has any questions.
Ellie, you had looking at these charts here. I can't quite see what is the prevalence of CCMV as listed from the Washington Project.
Okay, so in that year, it's more of it just shows how many babies. So 420 babies compared to adding all of these babies up.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, that really.
Less.
Woo.
And so
All right, I feel you. I see you there.
actual
Wow.
number of children diagnosed in that screening program in 2019 versus the estimated number that would likely have been if it was included in the screening. Yeah.
And then if you could zoom in on the awareness of the incidents,
Right.
it's almost inversely related. It's so prevalent, but
So there it is. Yeah.
the awareness is just nowhere near where you think it would be,
Right.
which is kind of shocking to me. Um, would it be all right to just kind of ask you a little bit, just ask you some questions if nobody else has any questions?
Yeah.
And people feel free to ask a question, put it in the chat, and we could field it. So before Anderson's diagnosis, had you ever heard of CMV or congenital CMV?
Funny, I reflected on this, and I always said no. And then I thought back, I actually was pregnant with my daughter. And I had a rash on my stomach. And I recall that I was tested, and I remember that she mentioned this virus, but nothing else was said about it, and it came back negative, which kind of makes sense that I didn't have it because I probably had my primary infection. With Anderson. But yeah, very, very, very brief information. Nothing, even when pregnant, doesn't,
Wow.
well, I'm testing you for CMV,
Wow.
not an
Um,
educational moment, but
so what was your pregnancy like? Did you
oh, great, great.
okay, so healthy pregnancy?
So pregnancy was great with both kids. So there was some concern at 20 weeks, and I had an echogenic bowel with Anderson. And so I did go to the MFM and got an ultrasound um, and checked everything out. And they said I had an the association with the echogenic bowel was CMV and Down syndrome and cystic fibrosis. And so at that time, even though I hadn't done previous testing, I went ahead with the associations and tested for all of those things. And they all came back negative,
Mm.
including CMV, which was very likely a false negative, which was fine at that time because there really wasn't the treatment options that there even is now when you're pregnant. And so that's where I'm thankful for science moving and growing because if you do get a diagnosis now in pregnancy, and Holly probably knows more, she's more medical than I know there are treatment options that can help not only the baby, but even potentially passing to the baby.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, so it sounds like the medical providers didn't give you much information about CMV, did they?
No, and I don't fault them necessarily. I think the biggest thing is the lack of information they get.
Mm.
Truly, they just aren't schooled with that. And again, I would love for Holly to kind of chime in on that because she's been there and seen that and probably has had talks with multiple doctors on the subject.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, I was reading Jenny's chat when you were talking about that. Can you tell me what you want me to elaborate on again? I'm not a good multitasker, apparently.
Yeah, go ahead, Renee. I'm like, I shouldn't open because then.
Oh, no, 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 you're no, no, you're all good. Just uh Ellie was saying that you're more medically
Oh,
inclined as far as like what information might be given to providers to impart to other people.
Their
Um,
education.
yeah,
for education?
yes, yes.
Yes. So, I am a registered nurse, and so that's why she keeps saying I'm more medical. I would definitely say that there could at least be a pamphlet that you
Mm,
are given when you find out you are pregnant at the doctor's office. In the beginning, they test you for all these things to make sure you don't have them, such as syphilis, HIV, all the things that they screen you for when you first find out you're pregnant. The least that they could do is give you a pamphlet on CMV, because, 9% of women have heard of it, that list how to prevent the different types of primary versus secondary infections, just a little bit of general information as to why you might be a little more cautious if you have toddlers at home. Just simple things to watch for during your pregnancy that you might ask your doctor to screen you for, such as, oh, I have a common cold, or I'm really, really sick and I keep throwing up, just random things like that. I feel like they should just automatically test for CMV at that moment, just to make sure you don't have a primary infection. I will elaborate on Ellie as far as treatment during pregnancy. If you find out that you do have CMV, they can give you antivirals during pregnancy. It's actually Valtrex. It's
Okay.
just a really, really high dose. And so they would have to monitor you throughout the rest of your pregnancy while you're taking that medication. But the families or the moms that I know that have done that during pregnancy, their kids are less affected
Mm.
after birth.
Right, right. And so that I'm so thankful for medical advances like that. And
Yeah.
what if you followed anything on at one point there was like cytoplasm that was given? Is that
I'm not certain on that. I do know that they are working on the vaccination, and I'm not sure what phase it's in right now. I do know some people that are in that trial, and they are willingly taking these CMV vaccinations to provide outcomes for that. But I don't know where that's at in as far as getting approved by the FDA.
and so Jenny, did you kind of answer Jenny's question
Let's see, you mentioned that you.
for secondary?
So, yes. So your primary infection versus a secondary infection, usually your babies are much more severely affected during a primary infection. versus a secondary infection. And that's only because your body doesn't have those antibodies to fight off the infection. So secondary infections you can get um, during pregnancy. It's not common, but typically from my research and experience with talking to families, their kids are either have no signs and symptoms or they develop very late hearing loss.
Um, so Adam asked a question in the chat. How is Washington's project data different to find this incidence versus what's described as awareness? I imagine the main hurdle in congenital CMV is the congenital part and how it's detected. Any progress in Oklahoma on early detection?
Um, so on the first question, I'm not sure on that, like how to describe, because that Washington data is new to me. Holly.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that either. Let's see, difference defined incidence versus.
The detection on congenital CMV is actually rather simple. You can definitely just test from their blood spot, just like you would the rest of the, like adding it to the blood screening. And it also is a simple cheek swab with the saliva, or Anderson, my son, which again, not normal screening, but through urine and just putting on that little bag and waiting for them to urinate. And so pretty simple and pretty low cost on all of those. Definitely something that I feel like we're hopeful. Holly and I both are going to the newborn screening symposium, and I'm really optimistic to have some really com some conversations to make some moves in Oklahoma and support a lot of babies that are probably falling through the cracks.
And I'll chime in on that and say that from my research, I've learned that the urine test is actually a better detection of, or I guess whatever you want to call it. It's more accurate, a more accurate testing than blood, which is interesting to me because that is super simple test and it is very inexpensive.
What by what factor is the urine test better, or like the efficacy or of the urine screen versus the blood screen?
Um, that's a good question. I could never find the actual data that supports that. But when Max was tested, at his 2.5 week or 2 week newborn appointment, his doctor specifically said she wanted a urine test rather
Hmm.
than a blood test.
Okay.
I think the viral load is just it's
Yeah,
just
I was gonna say it has to be
Ah,
something with the
okay.
viral load, I'm sure.
but I mean that's where if you're going to screen a large group, adding it to
Hmm.
blood, I think that I would, and I don't want to quote, but like it's still a rather close test, but you're missing probably that percentage that you could get with the urine, and the saliva is just closer to, nine in the 90 percentage of catching
Okay.
babies. Yeah.
Um, it looks like Lauren, thank you for being here. She says, as a birth doula and a CCMV parent, I'm very curious as to why we do not screen newborns via cord blood at birth.
Agreed, right? I mean, I don't know specifically on cord blood because that's out of my realm, but yeah, I mean, I think we need to chat, Lauren. I would love to get to know you, especially if you're in Oklahoma, but regardless, and we can talk more, a lot of thoughts.
Um, if nobody else has any more questions, I can ask a few more. So, oh, okay. And Lauren says, yes, she's down. She would love to chat.
Good.
Um, so, what were the earliest signs of CMV that affected Anderson?
Um, so the reason he went to the NICU was he was shaking. And so I would try to breastfeed him and he would just like tremor. And I would tell my husband, hey, like something's weird, something's wrong. And he just slept and ignored me. And so I called the nurse in multiple times and like finally, and they kind of helped me. They finally took him out. At that point, he'd already failed 2 hearing screenings, but they weren't worried. Um, Oddly enough, a thyroid test came back funky. And the next day, we were shipped to Oklahoma City to Children's. And so when we got there, the first thing we arrived to was the fact that and the team was incredibly intelligent. And I don't know, I just was really impressed with them. But they came and said, hey, set us down. He's been having multiple seizures. We've given him 3 rounds of phenobarb and nothing's really helping. And so we need to do a spinal tap right away. And my husband was all in, like he was like, we got to do this. And for some reason, like I did not want that spinal tap and my little baby to have that big needle in his back. And so, um, but basically, if the thing that would have got him screened for CMV would very likely have been his hearing loss. But at day 4, that's finally when we found out. It's not like we found out in day 1. And so it took a long little, they weren't sure. We didn't know what was going on. And so anyway, day 4, finally, we got the information that through a urine test that he would.
Um, Holly, would you mind kind of answering the same question for Max? What were the earliest signs of CMV that were noted?
Yeah, Max's history is super complex. It goes back to when I was 24 weeks pregnant. He developed a cyst at the back of his brain on his ultrasound. And so the maternal fetal medicine doctor wanted to give him some time to grow. He was a small baby, but so was my first, so that I wasn't too concerned about that. So that was at 24 weeks, and he wanted to give him 8 weeks to develop in the womb. And so when we went back at 32 weeks, his cyst at the back of his brain was much larger, and then he had developed ventricular megaly, however you say that, enlarged ventricles. And he was smaller. He had not grown enough in those 8 weeks. So he was labeled IGUR, intrauterine growth restriction. And at that point is when they tested me for CMV, actually. And oddly enough, like Ellie, mine came back with a past infection, but no previous infection. So they wrote that off as I was a registered nurse. I probably got it from work.
Awesome.
And then at that time, they actually slapped a Dandy Walker diagnosis on him based on his brain anomalies. So that's what we thought he had. They even did an amniocentesis to check for genetic stuff at that time. And oddly enough, the doctor didn't test the fluid for infection. So his diagnosis was missed. And then upon delivery, I had him a day shy of 37 weeks via C-section because he was breech. He was very small. He weighed 4 pounds, 12 ounces, 17 inches long. Had an abnormal heart rate, had some petechiae. He had a very small head, and he was just little. Also failed his newborn hearing screen twice, but they kind of wrote all that off, said he was a C-section baby. We'll just follow up with a hearing test outpatient, and he'll be fine. He also had elevated liver enzymes on his labs and low platelets. Oddly enough, they said, he's got Dandy Walker, so you're fine to go home. Here you go. So we went home, and I left the hospital with a gut feeling that he had CMV because I knew about CMV. And at his 2-week appointment, when we saw his doctor, I asked her to do a torch screen on him, and she did, and it came back positive for CMV.
Wow.
That's Max in a nutshell.
Yeah, gosh. So to both of you, and thank you guys so much for sharing, Holly and Ellie. Um, how did the diagnosis change your expectations of parenthood, if it did at all?
Um, so when we found out, we kind of overheard. And so before the doctor actually came and gave us the official information, we went to the cafeteria and like was processing the information. And we looked it up and thought, wow, most babies, they're okay, right? So, and then we read when they do have symptoms and like our world just came crashing down. And I will say now, distancing myself, and even rather shortly after, I've definitely taken um, a perspective of appreciating every milestone and being thankful and grateful for our road. But I guess that's why I'm still here is I want each baby to have the very best outcome, just as we were offered with a diagnosis at 4 days when I know that we could have gone home. Um, and gone without the antivirals, gone without the I took a year off of my work of work. I took a year of leave to support him with intervention and without that diagnosis and supporting all of that, I don't think we would be where we're at right now. So yeah, that's kind of the parenting. And I probably babied him a little since my mom's on this call. But we supported him with all that we could to give him the best outcomes. And that's what I want for, each and every baby and family.
And Holly, would you like to share if Max's diagnosis changed your expectations of parenthood?
Yeah, for sure. My life looks totally different now. Um, I get a little emotional. Sorry.
Hey,
It's
don't apologize because you were talking about your family, and this is a you're in a safe, supportive environment. Okay.
yeah. Um, no, it did. He has an older brother who's 18 months older than him. Um, and so that was hard knowing that brother was going to have to grow up with, a brother that was going to be different. Um, but uh, we kind of like Ellie, we did everything from the very beginning. We immediately put him in early intervention. Once we got his diagnosis, he took 6 months of the antiviral. Um, we did out private therapy on top of early intervention. Um, I also reduced my work hours to meet his needs. Um, and I agree, Max would not be where he is now without parent support, for sure. And early intervention definitely makes a world of difference in him. Um, and yeah, I mean, I love him. He's great. He's taught us to be better people. But it changes everything pretty much. It
Oh,
does.
I'm sorry. I really with my child, he didn't have CMV, but he has hearing loss, and we
Mhm.
had a delayed diagnosis.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a lot, especially with you being a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
You had mentioned both of you did therapies, and what types of therapies and early intervention did you guys embark on with your kids? Ellie or Holly, would you mind just telling us a bit about what that looked like?
Yeah, where did I thought maybe I made oh, there it was. Yeah. Um, Sooner Start is something that I feel like is sometimes not known in our community anyway. And I think that was huge for us. And so having that support was allowed us to have like Holly said, we had two physical therapists. And what's interesting about that is, of course, they had two different, just like teaching. Anyway, two different ways of doing that. And each of those things were um they helped, they in their own way. And so huge, huge, huge. We had a developmental specialist come in and we had a speech through Sooner Start. And then we had occupational therapy and speech therapy through Hearts for Hearing, which was incredible, incredible to offer his first set of hearing aids. Speech, and we continue to do speech, and we live in Woodward, and so we do it through Zoom weekly. And anyway, so all of that, trying to think of there, I mean, we did music therapy, we did anyway, all the anything, but Sooner Start would definitely be something that I like to plug because I feel like sometimes I don't know how it gets. You should just get an evaluation and see if your baby qualifies because if they do, you know, that's the support.
Holly, would you like to
Yes.
address
So
that?
we started Sooner Start as soon as possible. I think he might have been 3 months old. He was young. He was really little. And we did speech, OT, and PT through Sooner Start. And then he also did speech, OT, and PT at a private clinic. And then we also did auditory verbal therapy at Hearts for Hearing. So he was in, I think at one point, 7 therapies per week, probably for the first year of his life, I would say. It was a lot. And then once he reached a year, we added feeding therapy on top of that. So he he was getting a lot of services, and he still does. He still does speech OT and PT privately and through the school now. And we kind of, since he's nonverbal and we weren't making any progress there, we kind of dropped out of the Hearts for Hearing auditory verbal therapy and switched directions. So now we're pursuing an AAC device.
Since you mentioned the AAC device, how have you guys adapted communication with your family? Kind of with my kid, he had the vocabulary at 20 months old of a 12-month-old, and we started sign language before we realized he had hearing loss. So would y'all mind sharing about if you guys have adapted the way your family communicates or something in that vein?
So for us, he has his right ear is completely normal. I will say it was not normal at birth. I do attribute that to antivirals, and I strongly believe in prayer as well. But the antiviral, so at 4 months old, we had another ABR in his right ear from moderate to normal, and so we're super thankful for that. And then he has his left cochlear implant. So we have not had a whole lot of adjustment, although the finding and keeping the cochlear implant on and where did it go because it's not cheap. Where did you put that? And that stress is a whole nother level. But anyway, we're very thankful for him to be doing really well with his communication.
Yeah, and then Max is actually bilaterally implanted with cochlears. He got his first one when he was 7 months old, and the second one when he was 17 months old. And he has never been verbal. He has 0 words. He is vocal, but he is not verbal. And so we have tried every communication device possible. We've tried buttons, we've tried picture boards, we've tried all the things you can possibly imagine. With his cerebral palsy, he physically cannot sign. His fine motor does not work that way. So we do simple sign with him when he's not wearing his devices. And I think he understands the simple, eat, drink, yes, no, sleep, bath, all of those. So we just got he's 5. It's been a very long 5 years with the hearing and speech aspect for him. It was very frustrating for a really long time, not knowing what your child is trying to tell you. And so he now it's an AAC device, but it's also the eye gaze. And we got it maybe 2 months ago, and he's reluctantly exploring it. And I will say he uses it more at school than he does at home because he has learned other ways to tell me what he wants. And he prefers that method instead. So, um, I try to make him use it and he shakes his head no. So that's where we're at.
Oh, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is emotional, and you guys have had, some tough times. How did you guys go about finding support in the toughest parts of your journey?
Social media. I'm going to tell you that right now. I have a ton of CMV mom friends that I have never met in person, but I talk to them all the time. And it was through our CMV Facebook group.
Up. So I actually have a slide for that. So weirdly enough, yeah, here
Yeah.
it is at the
Yeah.
bottom. Um,
Yep.
the obsession of looking stuff up, for me, like I didn't always post stuff, but I would search stuff because you can search in groups, and on occasion I even posted because, oh yeah, so much information and wealth, and people that no journey is the same. But people at least have experienced some of the same, and so super helpful. And so it's weird how connections, so I was connected with another mom in Oklahoma who's now moved to Florida. She was one of my first connections after the NICU, who there happened to be a mom that was shared with me there. But I do, like, I feel strongly, and being involved with Oklahoma Family Network, I think their give to me, made me want to give to others. And so just being like, it's going to be okay. And talking through things and like giving ways that are practical and, that can potentially help their child and their family. Oklahoma Family Network and, all of these networking groups are crucial for just well-being. And so super thankful for all avenues, that allow us to chat and relate.
Um, so, what advice would you give to parents that have just received a CCMV diagnosis?
Um, so first, don't look online, right? Oh, we just said go online, but take a breath. Um, it is going to be okay. And take the information, be an expert in that field, do your research, listen to the doctors. There are things that can support your child. Intervention, the brain can change. That's what I held on to so hard. The brain can change, and it did, and it can. The body all these therapies aren't for nothing. They're useful and they're exhausting, and Holly can totally say that even much stronger than I. But it's worth it. So
Yeah.
don't wait and see. Don't wait and see. Um,
Nope.
that's probably a definite one for me. It can't hurt. All the extra you can do can only support. So yeah, Holly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't wait and see. That's the one, I guess, phrase from doctors that really rubs me the wrong way, but also is partially true because, yes, you do have to wait and see. But like Ellie said, you have to provide the interventions, um, and you have to provide the therapy. And it makes a world of difference. I would hate to know where Max would be right now if we didn't have him in all these therapies and go the extra mile to make sure he's supported in every way.
Thank you, guys. Adam in the chat box, he says he's a neonatologist at Integris in OKC. Um, is there anything we can do as clinicians to improve, such as be more knowledgeable about outcomes? What would you recommend or what would you like to, how do you feel like physicians can improve upon the experience and intervention and diagnosis piece and communicating to parents?
So one thing, that some states are doing are screening, based on symptoms. So specifically targeting screening. I think that's something absolutely we should start in Oklahoma. And I do think probably hospital by hospital is our best approach rather than going through the legislator and making it a law. A lot of states are doing that. I think if we really want to get moving, we go ahead and make hospital policy. And at the very minimum, and I feel very strongly about if they fail their hearing screening, once, twice, right? The second refer, not fail, gotta be. They are screened for CMV because the chance of it being CMV after a referred and if they have hearing loss, I mean, it's 25%. Like that's 1 in 4. Having that information is invaluable. And so I think there's other symptoms that I would watch for and screen for CMV if we're not going to do, universal yet in Oklahoma. And I see pros and cons to that as well. Like the microcephaly, the petechiae, the IUGR, like my little fella, he had microcephaly, and he was also IUGR, but in general, he was 3% across the board. Like he was just a teeny tiny fella. And I know you can't probably screen every teeny tiny baby. Or could you? Those are questions that Holly probably could and also elaborate on her feeling.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I agree with Ellie on that. Definitely the failed newborn hearing screen, number one. I strongly support even after the first one. I mean, this test is it's so cheap. I don't, and if it's warranted, it's warranted. I just hate the fact that they're like, oh, it's because of this and this and this. Like, well, we don't know that for sure. We're 2 cases right here where it was not because of fluid in the ears or whatever. But yes, microcephaly for sure. That is very common. Just IUGR, and then lab work, Max had a combo of low platelets and petechiae, but since he had this, I guess, already presumed diagnosis, which I later learned can be caused from CMV, ironically. Yeah, I would say the top most common newborn symptoms should just be screened for.
Why do you think CMV remains relatively unknown despite being a leading cause of non-genetic childhood hearing loss?
sorry, I was totally reading his
Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, let's go with Adam. Dr. Adam, he says I'd love to help that on a legislative or hospital level. OBs can screen universally, small IUGR,
Yes.
and it's part of ACOG policy statements with the antenatal torch. From what I'm hearing, we need to make it pediatricians, neonatologists, and more OBs more aware, but more realistically, have a pathway to automate this, perhaps through Hearts for Hearing.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
I was thinking of something and then it left. But the reason I also feel strongly about not letting them leave the hospital without being tested is because I'm an educator. And unfortunately, not everyone's as passionate as Holly and I. And um they might not come back. They
Mhm.
might come back to get their hearing screened. And
Yeah.
having that diagnosis and making sure that diagnosis then gets their primary, like it's important before they leave the hospital. So I am thrilled to talk more with you and that you are willing to make efforts with us. So I'm
Yeah.
cool.
And also to chime in on that, the sooner that they're tested for CMV and they can start the antivirals is definitely, I think, beneficial. I know that they say that the antivirals really protect the hearing, but I don't feel that way, knowing that the women that take the antiviral, the not that specific one, but Valtrex during pregnancy, minimized
Impact. Yeah.
the impact, yes, thank you, that they had on their children.
Yeah.
I
Also,
don't believe that.
I think that medicine helped Anderson.
Yes, 100%.
And there is some data, it's just small. So yeah, yeah, it definitely improves, and it can potentially improve more than we think it can. So, then we know.
Um, is there a moment in either one of your family's journey, a conversation, milestone, or experience that captures why CMV awareness matters so much to you?
I think I just am so early childhood, early intervention focused that I think that background just makes this so important. And I feel blessed that we're doing so he's, Anderson's thriving. Um, and he's, I just quality of life, and how that trickle down effect doesn't just affect our family. I mean, it affects, I mean, it's just so many things. So
Holly, anything to add to that?
Um, no, I think she's pretty much spot on with that. It's,
Okay.
you know, it's just a different journey, and I feel
Yeah.
like if we're aware of what this journey could be and educate on that and um, make sure people support you through this because you don't really know how hard it is until you're in this position. Um, and I feel like if I could help another family not have to be in this position, it would be amazing.
I know. And that's where I feel like oftentimes I've kind of developed this to this place of like screening, but in all reality, it absolutely can be reduced and prevented in many, many cases. And so there's definitely two sides of that. If you get ahead of it and of course never get there in the first place, like there is education that still needs to happen on the front side. And then of course where we're at talking about screening, both things are very, very important.
Yeah. To follow Lacey's question over here about what can be done when a child is late diagnosed, other than therapies and education, there's really nothing medically that can be done at that point, unfortunately.
Um, what what does life look like for your kids right now? Because I know that it affects just the range of symptoms with an infection in a child can be expressed so differently. Would you all mind sharing that?
Right. So Anderson's so small and teeny tiny, and it's um very obvious in his class. Like he's always the small, even though he's the very oldest. Which is interesting because Holly will have something else to say. He's doing rather well. I had some concerns at one point, but he's doing great. He definitely is a very, very busy boy, and he has been diagnosed with ADHD. But we've made really tremendous gains, and so he's I don't know. I think for the most part, our life does look very, very normal, and I feel blessed by that.
Max, on the other hand, is a little more complex and a little more severely affected than Anderson. Like I said, he's just turned 5 in April. He has his bilateral cochlear implants. He has spastic quadriplegic CP, um, major developmental delay, um, has some vision issues, but it's not retinitis. It's more CVI, so cortical visual impairment. Um, and he's he's nonverbal. He does not walk by himself. He relies on a walker or a wheelchair. Um, with that being said, he still needs a lot of support there. He can crawl, he can climb on the couch and things like that. He is in public school. Um, we were going to get him into the little lighthouse, but as a working parent, we could not make their hours work for us. So he's in public school. He starts kindergarten this year. He will be in the severe, profound special education room. And he actually likes school, which is nice. Um, he kind of lives in his own little world a lot of the times, but he's now kind of blossoming and opening up and wanting to be curious about what his brother's doing. He's a terrible sleeper. We don't sleep at night, ever. So that's hard on our family, especially with two working parents and no safe sleep ed because insurance is fun. Um, and let's see, what else does Max have? Lots of therapies. Max has lots of therapies. I don't think he knows life outside of therapy. But what he does like, he loves water and he loves
Oh, cool.
stroller rides and he loves light up toys and he loves
Oh,
music and he's a happy boy.
oh.
Yep.
Um, Holly, thank you for sharing the things that he does like.
Yeah.
My kid was terrified of water. Like seriously terrified of water. Ellie, what are some things that Anderson likes?
Oh, he loves playing outside and most of all, pestering his sister anyway. I've tried to her, just ignore him, and he will stop. But no, sisters can't do that. He's been into the Thunder big time this year, and he's like obsessed with. The one thing that's been kind of nice, except for there's papers everywhere. Like he'll go and like color for hours at a time, like draw. So like we had T-ball, and T-ball's been fun. I helped coach that with a couple other moms. And we're going to state, which seems ridiculous. But anyway, he asked Google how to spell mom's name, like different mom's names, and wrote their names on this thing, on this little card that has like a bat on it or a ball on it. Anyway, kept him busy. So yeah, he likes Chet, but I'm afraid his dad disagrees with him after the playoffs. But
Was he crushed that the
oh,
Thunder
not that
lost?
serious. I don't, we're not
Okay,
but
okay. My
I
son Nolan
can't be that
just
upset about sports. But yeah.
bawled. He got really into SGA and he'd never played basketball before. Um, uh, so you have an amazing run coming up, and it's called Strides for CMV. I'm going to put the info in the chat
Very
where,
good.
where y'all can sign up. But this race is going to be so cool because they're going to have three separate locations, and you could even do it from wherever you are.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm
and
super excited because I actually changed shirts because we ended up getting to the threshold to screen print them. And so there will be a store that will open hopefully tomorrow morning with like maybe a koozie that has our old Route 66 design since Route 66 is like turning 100. And then like sweatshirts and shirts and that you can just purchase there, or just you can also purchase right through that link and buy a shirt and we can mail it to you. But if you wait for the new link, the lady will ship it to you from the store. So both ways are great. Both ways are great. And we're excited.
um, does anybody else have any other questions, or do you guys have any like words that, if you could tell a provider something, how do you feel, what do you think would be the best message for a provider to tell a parent that has a child that's been newly diagnosed? I know that's kind of a hard one.
Mm.
Um, I agree. I do think that is hard because the range is so wide, and that's where the doctors, the wait and see fun, right? Um, So, and I think that's a fair assessment. So the conversation is this is your diagnosis, right? There are a lot of ranges, and but the information we have allows us to monitor your child and offer them intervention and offer this treatment of the antiviral after they go through the process of checking, the MRI and the hearing loss and all of those other check boxes that goes with a diagnosis. Yeah.
Um, I guess something the takeaway that I got was that don't wait, like act now upon suspicion. And it's not just fluid in your kids' ears when
Yeah.
they flag on that hearing screen. Um, I that's kind of a takeaway that I got, and that's something that was kind of important in our family's journey. But
And you can't go back and test and know if
exactly,
it's CMV. Like that it's timely. And so testing them at birth is an important goal because the blood card is gone in 42 days, and in 3 weeks for that matter, your urine and your saliva are inaccurate. So anyway,
um,
I think it's all important conversations, but that's definitely one of them too.
Yeah. In my case, I'd like to add that if a parent has suspicions, don't trust your gut. Don't, push for testing. Sometimes, because if I wouldn't have pushed for that, we probably wouldn't have known Max's true diagnosis. But I had that gut feeling and I went with it. And luckily, our pediatrician was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, he has all of these symptoms, like, even though I tested negative at the time in pregnancy.
And I truly think there's a lot of like, and like I said, in the education world, and when you consider the amount that go undiagnosed, some of these kids, they won't ever know what it's attributed to, and ultimately they don't need to know, but they could have had the support. So yeah,
um,
thanks so
thank
much.
you guys.
I appreciate it. I'm super excited. If anyone has questions, I can drop my phone number, honestly, because that's easier. Just text me. I would love to chat. With I know I'll definitely talk to Adam about. We'll try to chat a little bit more about hospital policy and other things. But any moms on here that want to chat, I would love to talk to you. And I know Holly would too.
Yes, I'm
Um,
available as well. Here, let me put my number on here.
Adam is also a parent of a child with hearing loss, but a different flavor.
Okay.
Just
Thank
sort of as an aside. Um,
Okay.
but gosh, thank you guys so much for sharing your story. I We value your input. If you all could go online and complete this short eval, just let us know what you thought of the content and presentation. And hey, if you guys are available on the 26th of June, there is the newborn screening symposium in Norman, and both Ellie and Holly will be there's going to be a parent panel, and they also have their family stories that they shared via poster. And there's a couple of parents on here who also will have posters that were from the previous iteration of it, but it's free for families and parents alike, as well as professionals. So we'd love to see you there. If you are, it's totally free to attend. And honestly, this set might sound crazy, but they will actually make you a steak. I've never had a lunch experience like that. Someone just walked up and ordered a steak. That's how they wanted it. But thank you guys for your time. And uh, like I said, it's CMV Awareness Month, and thank you for doing the good work of getting the word out, and
Thank
for being vulnerable and sharing your stories. That is not an easy thing to do. Um, so just know that you've had an impact, and your stories will continue to have an impact on how docs practice, how things are perceived policy wise, and just keep trucking. Thank you guys so much.
And thank
Um,
you for those that I know everyone is so busy with families and it is a Tuesday night. So for those of you that came to listen, I appreciate that.